Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about the knowledge that different dungeon masters have of Faerun, the Forgotten Realms, and how you really can't assume that everybody will understand the Forgotten Realms. This shocked me. I thought everybody who plays Dungeons and Dragons knows what Forgotten Realms is, right? But shocking. I guess I shouldn't have been shocked. People forgot what the Forgotten Realms were. What the heck, right? So we're just having this blast with this new campaign. All player, all DM campaign. Four participants. Every person is both a player and a dungeon master. They play when they're not the dungeon master. They dungeon master on a shifting rotation, right? And you get 1 or 2 sessions max for your story. We're hoping it will be 1, but you can go up to 2 if you're like a little close. You can go over the 2 hour and go into the next session. So we shift the DM duties no less than you never get more than 2 sessions, and then it goes to the new DM. Even if the shift is in the middle of your story, you lose all control of all those player characters and all your plot points, right? They're not carried over. The next dungeon master ends your story the way they want to, period, right? There's really no note sharing, right? We don't like turn over NPCs with all the notes, right? It's just whatever was said in the game is reality, and that is respected by the DM, and it's carried forward, right? So at the end of our last session, I couldn't believe this. Our newest Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition dungeon master, who's never dungeon mastered D&D 5e before, but has dungeon mastered literally over 100 hours of Genesis, which is the generic Star Wars system with narrative dice. So he's a capable dungeon master. He's a capable game master. He's not a capable dungeon master. He's never run Dungeons and Dragons before. So he's like, I get that we're in Phandalin, and Phandalin is in Faerun, which is the Forgotten Realms. Is all that correct? And me and Greg said, yes, Bill, that's correct. He's like, so what is this Faerun? And I was like, well, it's really Loader with this serial number filed off. Humans, dwarves, elves. Anything that would fit in a Lord of the Rings movie will fit in Forgotten Realms. They're the same, right? And he's like, well, but I don't get it. Like, he's like, where's the king and queen? And we're like, well, there really isn't a king or queen of Forgotten Realms. And he's like, well, what about the cities? And I said, well, there are cities. And Greg was like, yeah, there are cities. So Greg says, hey, there's Waterdeep and there's Menza Baranzan, right? So we explain what those are. He's like, there's feudal, like cities? He goes like, this doesn't, he's like, this, why isn't this better filled out, right? And I piped up and I'm like, well, Faerun, Forgotten Realms, is specifically generic to invite you to to allow a huge range of stories to be told in the Forgotten Realms. It is specifically open-ended and generic, all right? And he's like, oh, I got to do a lot of research and learn about Faerun and the history of Faerun. And both me and Gregor look at him, we're like, it's Loader, right? Like, you don't need to do anymore. You know the feel, you know the vibe of it, right? And I even jumped in and I said, and also, Bill, don't go and research Forgotten Realms of Faerun. And the reason why is next week I could have Ravenloft float in. And he's like, Ravenloft, what's that? And I'm like, well, Ravenloft is a Transylvanian, like, Barovia feel. It's like think of like Monsterville, right? Like Transylvanian vibe, right? Like Dracula and werewolves, and right. And Ravenloft is a setting that is invasive. It can float into other settings, right? It's a setting that actually travels to other settings. And he's like, what? And me and Craig are just looking at each other like, how does he not know this, right? Because we're just stunned, right? That anybody wouldn't just know these things about D&D, right? But you really, especially when you have a mixed table of, and we have a mixed table. We have mixed ages, mixed experiences, mixed abilities, mixed other attributes as well. They're quite mixed, right? And so you can't really assume everybody's going to know this stuff, right? So, and we were like, we really discourage you from going and, reading 100 pages of content on Forgotten Realms before our next game session, because we may portal out to some other setting. And he's like, oh. And he was just like so flustered, right? And we were like, It's okay. Just calm down. We're gonna get there, right? So it just shocked me that that newer players have no idea what the Forgotten Realms are. How ironic that the Forgotten Realms have literally been forgotten. But when we're at these tables, we just need to be patient. We need to give the lore over. We need to be able to tell the lore in a quick manner. Do you know how to give like? Do you know how to like? What was I missing when I explained Faerun to Bill? Was there a part that I was missing? Why was it so hard for him to grasp, right? Or is it just like D&D settings are really incredibly challenging, more challenging than we expected, and this is to be expected? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for letting me share about my new campaign. We got that new car smell, man. We're all very excited. I'm excited about it, and I appreciate you guys letting me share what's happening. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.